Brian Giles might be the best hitter of the steroid era who never got any formal accusations of PEDs put against him. He didn't have the volume of some of his contemporaries, but at the end of his playing career, he held a 400 on base average, a 500 slugging clip, over 1,000 RBIs and walks, and over 50 career WAR. Excluding his 2009 season where he was worth negative 1.9 WAR, he totaled out at 53.0 career WAR. This is more than Fred McGriff, who made it into the Hall of Fame this year, and more than other guys who made it in like Harold Baines, Kirby Puckett, and Orlando Cepeda, just to name a few. When Brian Giles hit the Hall of Fame ballot in 2015, it was a sheet loaded with inducted studs like Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, John Smoltz, and Craig Biggio. I didn't think he was going to do well, but in the end, Brian Giles did not receive a single vote and promptly fell off the ballot in just 1 year of showing. To put this into proper context, the year prior, Jacques Jones was able to get a vote. A year later in 2016, David Eckstein got 2 votes and Mike Sweeney got 3. These guys were half the players that Giles was. Should Brian Giles have gotten into the Hall? It's tough to say. In a perfect world, all of these underrated guys will get their due, but Cooperstown is competitive as hell. But should he have gotten just 1 year on the ballot? No way.
No way.
It was a mix of bad luck and poor timing, 2 things that were common themes with the teams that Giles played for during his career. So today, we're going to give him his due. We're going to dive into just how good Brian Giles was in his prime, because he's a lot better than you remember. From the beginning, Brian Giles was underestimated. He fell all the way to the 17th round of the 1989 draft, scooped up by Cleveland out of high school. It took him 6 long years to crack the big leagues, but upon making it up, he made an impact for a potent Indians lineup. He made the most of his time on this contender, manning the outfield and posting a respectable OPS+. As the primary left fielder, Giles made an impact mostly with his bat, surrounded by superior offensive talents like Manny Ramirez, David Justice, and Jim Thome. Because of their lethal batting order, a middle-of-the-pack bat like Giles became expendable, and after the 1998 season, he was traded to Pittsburgh for Ricardo Rincon, something that's still looked at as a very questionable decision by the Indians. In each of his first full 3 seasons, Giles' team would make the playoffs, but after this 1998 trade, Giles wouldn't see postseason baseball again for 7 years. Cleveland would come to regret flipping Giles for a lefty reliever, as he would quickly enter the prime of his playing career for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Starting in 1999, Giles had the best 4 years of his career and quickly established himself as one of the best hitters in the National League. Giles was praised for his fierce control of the strike zone and very patient eye, and added along to this was 4 consecutive seasons with at least 35 home runs. Not only was he a walks machine that was really finding his power stroke, he was the absolute epitome of offensive consistency. He's one of just 3 players from 1999 to 2002 to play in over 600 games and maintain a cumulative OPS plus of 160, joining Jason Giambi and Sammy Sosa. In this 4-year stretch that was Giles' prime, he was one of just 6 hitters to put together 4 seasons in a row of 30 doubles and 30 home runs in a club with Jeff Bagwell, Carlos Delgado, Manny Ramirez, Maglio Ordonez, and Todd Helton. His MLB ranks in this 4-year stretch are staggering to say the least, placing in the top 5 for walks, walk to strikeout rate, and OPS plus. In this time span, his slash line was remarkably similar to Chipper Jones, who became a first ballot Hall of Famer at the end of his playing days. But while both men were slugging the ball, one was playing October baseball every season, and one was golfing at that time every year. I think you can guess who was who. In Giles' time with Pittsburgh, their cumulative winning percentage in his 4-year prime was .435%. That's good for a .281 and .365 record, 80 games under 500. But during that prime, Giles had a better OPS plus, better slugging percentage, and an on-base clip on par with Chipper Jones. The Pirates just weren't surrounding him with talent, but he continued to rake despite the futility of the team around him. Giles' best season of his career came in 2002, a year where he was the only Pittsburgh Pirate to have an OPS plus above league average. He set a career high with 135 walks, a .622 slugging clip, and a jaw-dropping 177 OPS plus. By all accounts, he was the second best hitter in the league and likely could have been an MVP frontrunner if not for the existence of prime Barry Bonds. His numbers back this up as well. In pretty much every feasible category, the only hitter Giles trailed was Barry Bonds. He was the runner-up for on-base percentage, slugging, weighted runs created plus, walk rate, walk to strikeout rate, and in front of him in all of those categories was another guy who should probably be in the Hall of Fame. Not much Giles can do about that, but at least this means he finished runner-up for the MVP that Bonds won that year, right? Wrong. He didn't finish second, he didn't finish third, he didn't even crack the top 10. Giles finished 13th in NL MVP voting in a year where he was a top 2 hitter in the league. He finished behind 2 relievers in Eric Gagne and John Smoltz, Smoltz, and a bunch of great hitters of that era who collected a few more home runs or a few more RBIs. This is likely the biggest travesty of Giles' career aside from his one-and-done show on the ballot. This was also the beginning of the end of his playing days at PNC Park, as a mid-season trade in 2003 sent him to his hometown team in the San Diego Padres. This was a pretty great win-win trade for both sides, as Pittsburgh would receive Jason Bay and Oliver Perez in the deal, two of their most productive players for some continuous lost years down the line. I found this trade interesting considering that the Padres were 10-13 to start the season and then proceeded to lose 25 of their next 30 games. This trade definitely seemed like a win-now move, but the club would go on to lose 98 games that year. All the while, Giles remained productive despite playing for two clubs, but he would outdo this with a stellar 2005 season. Giles led the league in a statistic for the first time in his career when his 119 walks in 2005 led all major leaguers. He only clubbed 15 home runs but batted over 300, posted his best OPS plus since 2002, and finally cracked the top 10 of MVP voting as the Padres won their division despite just an 82-80 record. Giles was easily the most potent bat in their lineup the whole way. I do find it very interesting that Giles' first time cracking the top 10 in MVP voting was in 2005. He had a good year, but not one of his best years by his career standards, yet this was the first time his team made the playoffs since 1998. Now, I'm not saying playing for a playoff team has direct correlation to MVP voting, but I think it's definitely a factor, and this is likely why Giles was undermined throughout his career playing for the Pirates. The Padres would win the West again in 2006 off the back of Giles as he finished out his playing days in his home state. He didn't reach the heights of his prime in Pittsburgh, but was easily the face of the franchise for the mid-2000s years. Aside from his abysmal 2009 season, which we're not going to talk about, Giles posted a cumulative on-base near 400 and was 25% better than the league average hitter's OPS plus during this time. He was one of just 11 players in the wildcard era to draw over 130 walks in a single season, and of those players, he was the only one not to be the walks leader of that season. Thanks a lot, Barry Bonds. Giles is also one of just 14 players in the expansion era to play in over 1,500 total games and still maintain an on-base percentage of 400 or better over their entire career. But at the end of his playing days, Giles' resume included one top 10 MVP finish, 2 All-Star nods, and 0 Silver Sluggers. It was most likely because of the lackluster teams that he played for, but it doesn't change the fact that Giles was underrated even at the height of his talents. Giles even vetoed a 2008 trade to the Red Sox, which would have placed him in the middle of a pennant race in the American League. Also, MLB just makes it tough to find highlights of this guy. Lance Berkman, a player with very similar career WAR and also with that underrated status that Giles has 40 MLB highlights. Not a crazy total, and a lot of them past his playing days, but still, that's plenty to work with. Brian Giles has 6 MLB highlights. Do you know how hard this video was to put together with just 6 highlights? I had to go through old game logs and screen record his hits just to put something together. Don't say I don't care about you guys. If we look at his Baseball Reference similarity scores, we can see that some of Giles' tightest player comparisons include Andrew McCutchen, Maglio Ordonez, Freddie Freeman, and Bobby Bonilla. All of these guys were 5-time All-Stars, 3-time Silver Sluggers. Freeman and Kutch took home MVPs as well. These were very renowned players that Brian Giles was just as good as. In each of the seasons where Giles received MVP votes, he maintained a WRC plus above 145. He did this in 6 full seasons total during his career and was never able to win a Silver Slugger in any of them, despite having the second highest weighted runs created plus of any National League outfielder on 3 separate occasions. That alone should have been grounds for some awards, but he never got them. Do these awards really matter? Well, not necessarily, but they stand as accolades that show respect to a player's efforts. They're worth signing bonuses, and whether they should or not, fans and writers count them up when recounting who were the best players of a certain era. A whole lot of players who were not as good as Brian Giles were 2-time All-Stars in their career. There are a ton of Brian Giles-esque players out there, guys who excelled on mediocre teams, guys who didn't get that couple extra years of volume, guys who just fell short of arbitrary milestone clubs. And in the end, they don't deserve to get forgotten, but they do. There's a lot of baseball players out there. Many of them are good, just a few of them are great. In my opinion, Brian Giles was a great hitter, and that's why he's a lot better than you remember. If you've never checked out his Baseball Reference page, I highly suggest giving it a look. It'll probably shock you. And what else will shock you are the great deals at Manscaped right now. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's episode. Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right. They are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Now you can finally use Manscaped products on that shaggy beard to touch it up by going to manscaped.com and using code OLIVE for 20% off and free shipping. The cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, so no more mess in the bathroom when you're trimming your good beard. It's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower and avoid all that hair in the sink, and the Pro Kit doesn't end there either. They have created several dermatologist-tested formulations for your post-trim care, like their beard shampoo and conditioner, beard oil, and beard balm that makes the process as smooth as possible. It also comes with 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code OLIVE at manscaped.com. Click the link in my description to check out those products today and set up your order right now. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.